I call the meeting to order. The first item is approval of the agenda. I believe you all have that in front of you. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. First item on the agenda is rezoning case 2023-01, 8530 Valley Boulevard. And I'll let Kevin start it off presenting the case. Oh, I'm sorry.
Which isn't on the agenda.
That's on there. I should have written that in, sorry. We'll step back and do minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah.
Yep.
Any corrections or additions? Is there a motion? Pete? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Now we'll go to first case. Kevin, you want to start us out?
Yes, the very first part of the project listing has the wrong rezoning number. Cut and paste error there. It's 2023-01. The request is for rezoning to short-term rental overlay district. Derrick Land Company LLC is requesting the rezoning to the overlay district. The property is 8530 Valley Boulevard. It's currently zoned R6M multifamily. The property will maintain that base zoning district of R6M, and the overlay district, if approved, would allow for short-term rentals. Property consists of one triplex building. It's got 3 total units and is actually in Caldwell County. The R6M zoning district does not permit short-term rentals by right, but if an STR overlay district is applied through rezoning. Royal Oaks Condominiums is currently the only property that has the short-term rental overlay district designation, and that's on Ransom Street. That was applied back in 2000. Short-term rental overlay districts require that the property be a multifamily residential complex with a homeowners association with the authority to regulate short-term rentals within the complex. The ordinance section pertaining to the establishment of a short-term rental overlay district is included in your packet. Some of those designations, it would have to be a map amendment, can be initiated by Board of Commissioners or Planning Board Town Administration or an owner of property within that district. The property must be in R10M or R6M zoning district, which this is. Some other criteria: must be compatible with land uses in the immediate vicinity of the lots or parcels be designated STR. The proposed short-term rental use as a result will not result in so many additional vehicle trips that have adverse traffic impacts felt upon the streets or the neighborhoods bordering the district. This property is accessed directly to 321 with the driveway cut. And then some additional requirements related to screening and trees may be applied to the STR district to screen the adjacent residential use if they find that the current screening or buffering is inadequate. The applicant is requesting the STR overlay be applied to this property through this rezoning request. If approved, the owner would have to apply for short-term rental permits prior to operating. There's currently 3 dwelling units in the structure which can be renovated, modified, and improved and expanded. If there are additional dwelling units proposed in the future, then that project would require a special use permit for review, because special use permits are required when multifamily is proposed. There's currently multifamily there now, and that's fine, and they can do those renovations through a zoning permit. But if that dwelling unit number increases beyond the currently 3 that are there, a special use permit would be required according to the land use code. There is sufficient parking. It appears to be on site, there'll be sufficient parking for probably up to 7 bedrooms. I'm not sure how many are proposed, or if the applicant might share that later tonight, but there's room for expansion of that, or to formalize and improve the parking that's down there now. I'll show a couple of pictures of the site. This is a site on the zoning map, this property here. This is the aerial that I just had up for you. This is the property, and access is off 321 through this driveway cut here. And then this shows the driveway access going down into the site. As you get down to the front of the house, this is the view you see, and then you've got parking on the right side and then parking on the left side. And so there could be several parking spaces provided for the proposed number of bedrooms that would be used in short-term rental. That's really all the documentation that I had. I can pull back and show you the site again. It's this, well, I'll say in tight. This is the property. This property to the east is vacant. The next one is vacant. This property is vacant other than a parking area that's shared with Chateau Cloud. And then this is Chateau Cloud, the 2 buildings there. And then this is the Hamptons through here. And the parking access for Hamptons is here. As you know, this is the traffic signal, 321 South Main Street, Skyline View Drive. I might be able to answer some questions on at this time for you, give you some insight to it. Be glad to do that. I know the applicant, Mr. Derrick, would like to speak, and some owners, adjacent property owners would like to speak as well.
Any questions?
Thanks. This way.
Mr. Derrick, you'd like to come up?
I think y'all got my letter. I have nothing more to add. It's my wife's birthday gift. We're not interested in Christmas, I'm sorry. We're not interested in opening a hotel or having people that we don't vet to come in. We're going to keep the ownership of the 3 units in our name, with the LLC's name. But we do have a lot of people that we know from South Carolina. She has 7 brothers and sisters. We won't charge them as much. We don't want to charge them some. But people we know in South Carolina, my friends, we don't take 28-day vacations. And I know a lot of people have a 28-day limitation and they rent it like they want to anyway, but we want to do it legally and we want to do it the right way. And my wife's on a vet who's going to stay next to her. I mean, my family's going to be there. Michelle's going to spend, she didn't go home with me after we closed. She stayed up here and made me go home by myself. But if ever there's a property that this should qualify as this property, I mean, it's not interfering with anyone. We can plant evergreens. We're down cleaning up after we closed, and she had a radio playing outside. I said, "You better turn that down." I said, "Wait a minute." I walked up into our neighbors there. You can't hear it. It's down the mountain. You can't see it. You can't hear it. It's private, and we want to do it the right way. And if we want people from South Carolina or friends to come up, or we want to rent it to somebody for 3 or 4 days and vet them, we feel like we ought to have the right to do that. I don't tell my neighbors what to do. I won't tell the neighbor who's beside me, who I've talked to. I'll never tell him what to do with his property. But we don't be good neighbors. And if anybody knew anything about us, they know that. But I think it meets all the criteria in your laws. And I think it should be approved. And I'll answer any questions you have.
Do you plan on using a service like Airbnb or VRBO?
Have not talked about using that. I mean, it would be out the question, but we would take applications. I research people for a living.
Yeah, I was just wondering what you were doing to vet these folks.
Whatever we can do to vet them. I haven't looked at it, I haven't gone into it. I know there's application processes people can apply. But we will look into anyone before they come stay with us. I mean, if I have my wife up here and my family up here, people are gonna be vetted. There'll be cameras on the exterior. We don't protect the property, we protect my family and the neighbors. I'll give my neighbors my cell phones. And I assume you'll have ordinances on noise or illegal activities, but we have found, we bought a property in Merle's Inlet in a gated community in 19 and fixed it up. We have found that if you have top of the line property, and that's what I want to do with this property, I want to make it the best property on that ridge. If you have top of the line property, if people are going to pay what you make them pay if they come stay in that unit, you get good people, you get responsible people. In the shape it's in right now, you get day laborers, but that's not what we are talking about leaving. I have down at our beach house, my neighbor, restaurant owner, $2.5–3 million beach house beside me, rents it on a weekly basis. I leave my door unlocked. We don't have a problem with people who pay that kind of money to bring their family down.
Do you know what your nightly rate will be? Would be.
Based on what it is now, based on after I build.
Yeah, based on what you'd like it to.
I have no, I do not.
Okay.
I've talked to one builder. We talked to another builder. We're going to meet up here this week. I realize it's a year or 2 years out to get anybody to build anything around here. But compared to what other people are getting, it would be the top. I mean, we paid $350 or $4 to stay on Main Street over here. So I would think it'd be $500, $600, or $700 a night.
Thank you.
We're talking about, her dream is to have one unit big enough for our immediate family, and then smaller 2-bedroom, two bath units beside us. Half her family's at NC State, half of them UNC. We'll divide them. They don't sleep under the same roof. And that's what we'd be renting. We'd be renting the other 2 units. Anybody else got any questions? There were some concerns, and I can understand legitimate fears. I don't know. I asked in my letter if that property has ever been a problem as far as from a noise standpoint or illegal activities. It's been short-term rental, according to the family who sold it to me, forever. I mean, we rented it in 2017, didn't violate any laws while we were here. So, if it's on the record that that's a problem of them blowing rock, that people go down that hill and cause a lot of problems, it'd be one thing. And if that happens, then there's ordinances and laws to take care of it, but that's not going to happen. And honest to God, I do not believe we'll have an effect on anybody around us. I think people can project worst case scenarios, but I can project worst case scenarios of what's going to go on in the condos. I don't know those people. I don't know who's buying those condos. So projecting a problem and a real problem are 2 different things. Any questions? Sure.
No. Thank you for my Christmas present.
Thank you.
All right. Well, just for the benefit of the audience, it's not a public hearing, but we do like to take comments, and that gives a preview, I think, for City Council of what to expect in the real public hearing. So, at this time, we can open it up, and if anybody wants to make a comment, we have, the board has copies of letters from the petitioner and 2 letters of opposition, one's from Chateau Cloud and also from the Hamptons.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak. Thank you, and it's nice to get to meet Michelle and Dirk. We have a nice conversation, and we look forward to state of Carolina folks coexisting with us all right there in the neighborhood. I'm Laura Bingham, and I live at 164 Pruden Lane. It's the cottage up here, Kevin, yeah, the cottage. So as I tell Shane and Chief Miller all the time, from my second floor bathroom, I can tell you anything going on at the intersection of Valley Boulevard and Main Street. So I have nice eyes on all kinds of things. I'm also president of the Hamptons Homeowners Association. We have lived there and owned for 24 years. We do oppose the application for the short-term rental. I'm a bit of a policy wonk, so I went on a dive on policy a bit to just look at this. We want you to enjoy your new property. We think you have a fabulous, fabulous property for the long haul. So we look forward to being good neighbors all the way around. First and foremost, I understand that the comprehensive plan is really the criteria by which the council ultimately makes the judgment call, and you make a recommendation around that. And so I want to just, I want to acknowledge members as volunteers, but also I want to acknowledge that for the 25 years almost we've owned the property, the prior owner and the Binghams have had a great relationship, and they have done short-term rentals, but it's been more friends and family. So we never, called them out by any stretch, and we were glad to see it used for that occasion because she was living in the Midwest. Comprehensive plan. So I want to speak to consistency, reasonability, and really alignment with the values that are stated in the comprehensive plan. Now, granted, this plan is 2014, and we know that Blowing Rock has changed dramatically in the last decade, and I think all of us would say the last 3 years during and post-pandemic. First on the plan is preserving access to nature and landscapes. So this speaks to ENR 1, and basically it talks about the irreplaceable vistas and views that the public has access to. And of course, this stretch of land is 321, and coming from, right past, I knew it as a big dollar growing up, so most recently Canyons, it's Wheelies now, I guess. So that stretch all the way to this intersection of, to the Derek's new property, the intersection of Main and Valley Boulevard, is really one of the most, if not the least obstructed view of the Johns River Gorge. Now, you can certainly go up on Mayview and, have the stunning views there, but this is truly public property. In fact, my husband and I can count the number of people that pull over. Dirk and Michelle, you'll see this, but Kevin, do you mind zooming back? The parking pad right there where your area is, and over, essentially, is used kind of as a public overlook now. On any given evening, you can see cars just stacked up there. As I have mentioned to Chief Miller over time, because they pull up over the curb and they're looking at the beautiful vistas, but it's really a hazard in a lot of ways. They get out of the car, they're walking to the vista. So this is truly one of the most dramatic landscapes. We are so fortunate, and we will all benefit, but all of Blowing Rock will, with the current effort to preserve, Kevin, I don't know if you have this, but the 332 acres of the Cherry Tree Hollow that is getting ready to hopefully be put into a permanent conservancy. This property, the Barrett's property, Chateau Cloud, the Hamptons has one little smaller parcel between us. It's adjacent to this conservancy. So granting the short-term rentals would essentially put, I think, the first and only short-term rental onto the Gorge View. So that's really, I think, key to the values that we've expressed as a community through the comprehensive plan. The second one talks about compatible growth. And of course, the current, and I guess since the 1920s, when your property was actually built, residential. There has been nothing but residential. Our homeowners at the Hamptons are non-rent. Our rules and regulations actually require that they cannot. They have to meet at least the town code of the 28-day plus. So this is really compatibility with the residential long-standing neighborhood, and it is obviously the most appropriate use in our opinion, and that would be single family. The third area on the comprehensive plan that I just noted is the safe pedestrian walkways. DOT and the town have invested in pedestrian walkways. As Shane knows, I feel like if we invest in these sidewalks, then we have a responsibility to keep them safe. And once again, from my perch up there in our second bathroom, I can tell you all kinds of activity. You've got very few people are going the speed limit. Most of them are going 10 to 15 miles over the speed limit. And we've got, you've got baby strollers, joggers, bicyclists, pedestrians. I mean, there's a lot of activity now that if you're not there on a daily basis and looking at it, you really don't have a great appreciation. Also, I know we use somewhere, the town does, between 12,000 and 16,000 vehicles a day travel on Valley Boulevard. And we know that increasingly, there's various activities around the enforcement that is happening in Blowing Rock. So much so that I put my hat off to the town council and Shane for adding 2 more officers that are going to focus on public safety and specifically 321 speeding in that kind of area. So this is Kevin, I think you have this, but the current short-term rentals, so everything is orange that is allowed as the overlays at this point. So do you have that basically put up here?
No.
Okay. So the area that is that unobstructed view that I'm talking about is here. And so our properties are here. The Derrick's property, the Bingham's property, the 17 homeowners of the Hamptons and Chateau Clouds owners as well. So we would like to see no orange in that vista.
Is that because you think it's going to block the view, or?
It's a different activity than has been there. It's the
okay.
residential, right, it's just the residential nature. We just don't think the weekend commercial activity is what is the highest and best use of that considerable value of that sweeping view to Blowing Rock. Also, I would speak to the request, to the criteria specifically, and there are 3 areas that I just want to emphasize, and I'm about to wrap it up. One is the number 4, the 4th criteria is the incompatibility issue with existing uses in the immediate vicinity. Again, residential, single-family homes. Number 5 is the adverse traffic implications. As you can see, the Derricks are going to have a right turn only out of their driveway, which is that long driveway that comes up. And we think, that represents a safety issue based on the 16,000 vehicles that are carrying logs and concrete trucks and all kinds of delivery situations that are speeding past there all the time. And we think number 6, insufficient separation between the properties. Even though there is some green space, we've got neighbors, particularly at Chateau Cloud, that look sideways at your property. And of course, we can see over as well. So in closing, we'd like to see it stay single-family, residential, not the overlay for the short-term rental. We believe it's inconsistent with the norms that the town has expressed through the comprehensive plan and the criteria specifically laid out for these requests. And we think it would be detrimental to the landowners that many have been there a very long time. So we thank you, and we urge a recommendation not to approve. And we look forward to you being our neighbors at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jim Kane. My wife Helen and I bought at Chateau Cloud in 1999, 24 years ago, and we live in the bottom of the east building, which is the one you see on the screen there. When Chateau Cloud was built in the 60s, the homeowners elected not to allow rentals less than 3 months. That is in our rules and regulations, and to my knowledge, no one rents there now, even with that allowance. There was a couple who rented on an annual basis for a number of years, but they sold their unit a year ago, and so no one currently rents. And the reason for that is to preserve the essential character of that neighborhood and the vistas that Laura Bingham spoke of. The point I'll make, and Laura made a lot of wonderful points, is simply one of precedence. When the town council passed this comprehensive plan and the short-term zoning rules, however many years ago it was, they specifically carved out and allowed for no short-term rentals along that incredibly remarkable vista between Shadow Boulevard, is that right, Shadow Boulevard? And Green Hill Road. There is no short-term rental allowed on that side of the ridge, on that side of Main Street, on that side of Valley Boulevard. Despite the fact that at least on one occasion in 2019, 5 properties were requested to be allowed to have short-term rentals along that ridge. As I understand it, properties that maybe were sort of across from the country club, as I understand it. And I know it was a different planning commission and a different council back then, but despite the fact that those properties were, even I think by the staff, labeled as unique because they weren't really residential, they're across from the country club and next to a restaurant. Even in that case, the town council, concerned about precedent, decided to reject that application. And my appeal to the planning board, and as we are appeal to the town council, is to not disrupt that precedent, not allow this pristine, unique property to become subject to short-term rentals. We do, it's unfortunate that we meet Dirk and Michelle tonight and not before. We welcome them to the neighborhood. We are really looking forward to the wonderful homes you're going to build there. I mean, that's wonderful for the neighborhood. And we look forward to you and your guests, but prefer they not to be rented to less than 28 days. And that's our appeal, that we request that you not support the applicant's request for short-term zoning, to preserve the essential character of this neighborhood and to avoid the precedent we think this would set on this side of that incredible ridge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a couple of responses.
Sure.
That ridge doesn't have multifamily zoning. If you go down here where he's talking about, that's not multifamily zoning. I would agree with the cut through out of my driveway. So if you want, for safety reasons, somebody can cut that thing so I can take a left-hand turn, I'd appreciate that. I want to be a good neighbor too. I have to ask what the single residential families said when condos were brought up and put on the ridge. I may come do a research project and see, did they raise Cain about condos going on the ridge? And they both told you that they voted how they wanted to run their properties. But they don't want me to control my property. Multifamily, I think I should be able to control my property. Thank you.
Any,
Chairman, may I just say, I neglected to mention this, and maybe you did, but I do appear tonight not on my personal behalf alone, on behalf of the board on which I serve and the 22 homeowners who unanimously have asked the board to oppose the request.
And I would just further respond that, the, short-term rental is not in keeping with the current guidelines that the town sets that we all abide by.
Any questions?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll end comments and just allow us to talk among ourselves. In looking back at those minutes from 2009, just to echo Mr. Khan's comments there, town council did talk about setting a dangerous precedence by jumping across 321 with the overlay. Any concerns that you might have about that?
Well, 2009 was not that request.
Oh, I'm
2000.
sorry, 19.
19. We're talking about these properties. So the difference in this request and this was conditional zoning for all 5 properties that signed on to go from R15, single family, touch the screen.
But it'd still be the
But it was going to be conditional zoning to R6M with an overlay district applied to those properties.
yeah, I think they were talking about the overlay, extending it across 321 and setting a precedence for other properties on down toward Green Hill.
Well, let's back up a minute and look at the zoning for the properties now. So the opportunities for short-term rental overlay are shown in the areas that are orange. If Chateau Cloud said, you know what, we want to have the opportunity, they can apply. Those 3 or 4 properties, including the one that's the subject property that the Derricks are looking at, properties along the country club entrance, across the street at Chateau, at the restaurant. I still call it Canyons, if that's all right. Also including the Pinnacle Woods. And then as you go over towards Green Park Inn, the condo, Green Park, the condos at Green Park Inn, Village at Green Park Inn, the old ones and the new ones. That opportunity is extended to request an overlay district. One thing unique about those properties, most all of them, they're aligned along the US highway. Short-term rental noise would pale in comparison to the noise of the highway, I think was one thing mentioned in the request from 2019. The use was brought up about it being single family. That's true of those 5 properties. That was the use and is still the use of those properties right here.
They didn't meet the criteria.
They didn't meet the criteria, so they were asking for a further step than overlay. They were asking for a complete rezoning conditionally, but which is, they can ask for that, was not approved. This being a little different here in that it is R6M, allows for multifamily, is not single family. This is not single family use. The Hamptons is not single family use. There's a single family house, but these are not single family. And these, as they are developed, will not be single family. They'll be multifamily, I would imagine, or at least a duplex. But again, those properties have been vacant for at least 20 years. I don't know if any other comparisons about the 2019 request. Another request that was made on Ransom Street, 2 duplex buildings that Rick Riddle asked for those to be short-term rental. Again, every application is a little bit different because they're situated in a different location. Ransom Street is R6M the whole way. Well, for the most part, except for this corner piece here, everything else all the way back down to Sunset and beyond is R6M multifamily. Allows for that type of use. Does not necessarily mean short-term rental unless this property meets the criteria like these duplexes. Was not approved. Royal Oaks, as I mentioned, this one here is the only one that's been approved for short-term rental overlay. But it is a neighborhood, but it's a transitional neighborhood. It is not single-family neighborhood from a zoning standpoint. It serves as a transition from business on 321 to higher density to lower density as you move on up the hill, up towards Hinkle Street and up Chestnut. So, don't know how many other comparisons there are, but trying to explain some nuances in both requests.
Just comment, I mean, I think one of the most important things is this is a zoning request at its heart. It's not a permanent request, right? So I think the principle of zoning is that it transcends who the current owners are and the current applicants. And I think I think for the questions about rates and things like that, for zoning, it doesn't matter, because 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now.
It only matters the type of person you're trying to bring to this property.
Totally understand, but zoning is something that transcends who the owner is today or tomorrow, right? It's something that carries forward, and I think is a bigger issue than just, here's the plan for 2023 and the 2020s, what's the plan for 2030s or 40s, and nobody can, I think the decision-making has to be bigger than just current.
I don't find it likely that somebody's gonna buy it when it's fixed up and lower the price of a short-term rental. But I guess, hey, it could happen.
But less about the money, I think more about the questions that you were asking about vetting and all of that. I mean, just, you have great owners today, it doesn't say who your owners are tomorrow.
Right.
I guess, Kevin, do you have any concerns about spot zoning? Since would this be the first time it's one parcel outside the overlay as it exists now? Because I see there are other opportunities on down the road.
Yeah. I don't have a spot zoning request because it's an overlay. There could be concern that conditional zoning is spot zoning.
Yeah.
This one across the street is conditional zoning.
Yeah.
For the old church. Was extended, the church was there, they extended one lot back to include this property as conditional zoning. That was our first conditional zoning.
The courts are a lot more lenient with conditional zoning because you're in a negotiation process with your neighbors.
Right.
Whereas this is just, here it is. I just get concerned when you give one property owner special privileges that the surrounding properties don't enjoy.
I would see it differently if it was over here or over here, where it's not traditional. It is not expected in that neighborhood. Is this a neighborhood? I mean, they enjoy neighborhood setting in Chateau Cloud and also here. But this, a one access driveway into a property that sits, 500 feet before the bottom of the valley. I don't know if that's a neighborhood. It's interesting.
concern is just the level of conversation that there's been about short-term rental in Blowing Rock, and the concern on the part of the neighbors in the neighborhoods. And, you know, we've got the overlay district, and we've assured the citizens that the overlay district is defined and that this is not going to come to your neighborhood. That's kind of been the message, and I think the community expects it to continue to be like that.
That's not an overlay district.
Right.
This is a request for an overlay district.
Right.
The map shows where short-term rental is currently allowed. It does not include the areas where overlay district could be applied.
Right.
So those terms are a little bit different.
So that concerns me.
Can you?
Yeah,
We can hear you.
Like to explore, because it was mentioned several times about creating a precedent. And that was also discussed in the, I saw it in the minutes at the 2019 meeting. And I'm unclear about what is meant exactly when you say set a precedent. Could it set a precedent for other short-term rental overlays in zones that are comparable to this, or changing things to be short-term overlays in other zones? Kevin?
No, it could not. It can only be applied in R10M and R6M zoning districts that are currently there, unless there is a rezoning to zone other properties R6M. I think the term precedent is thrown out there. That makes you think that your hands are tied. Every application stands on its own, and you judge based on like circumstances. You treat like circumstances with like decisions. If this is somewhere else and things are different, you do not have to make the same decision on a different piece of property with a new application. Everything is unique. If there's another situation just like this, if it was next door, and if you decide to vote this one favorably, or a favorable recommendation, you probably should treat the one right next door in the same way, similar circumstances, or the lot next to that. If you go up the street a little bit, that's those 5 properties, that is a little unique. That would not be the same as this piece of property. So I don't agree with setting a precedent from a professional situation, but if it's very similar, you need to consider it in a very similar manner. That is not a for or against the application. That is treating like situations the same. Were you able to hear me, Kat?
Yes, and
Okay.
thank you, Kevin.
Okay. I think Sam's on too. Sam is.
Oh, he's online too.
I think so.
Good.
That's what Tom said.
One thing I also try to look at is benefits versus detriments. Benefits to the applicant versus detriments to the adjoining properties. And whether one substantially outweighs the other.
I'm personally against dropping overlays wherever we want, wherever people think they need them. What I understand is that they're looking for one of the triplex to be their home, and then the 2 other for rental. You've got that. You just have to rent it for 28 days. So you've already got what you want. Either way, you're gonna throw money into the building, I'm assuming. That's what I think. And good luck getting rent out of the family.
There's just been so much discussion about the character of the town and the preservation of the character. And looking at the property owners, you've got what, 20 families on one side, 14, 17 on the other side, family in the middle. And it's a good point that we can't, even if this situation was absolutely perfect, you can't control what happens to it in the next generation of ownership, or the next person that buys it. And if they maintain the same standards, and that affects the neighbors. And I don't think that's fair to the neighbors.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, he may manage this absolutely perfectly and vet all the people.
Right, yeah, there's
right,
no-
and the behaviors are excellent. And, but yet the next owner may not have the same standards and the same high level with.
Right, you can't.
And you can't control that, you can't regulate that, you know? We can only deal with the problems once we have the problems. And how do you prevent the problems? So you prevent the problems by not making the exception. That's my feeling.
Any other comments, questions?
Kevin, are we still at like 0 complaints about short-term rentals in town?
Currently, existing short-term rentals that are allowed, don't have any. Okay, hadn't had any in a long time.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was wondering, are those two properties, not the primary residence, are they being rented right now, short-term, 28 days?
Where?
The two, are there no, the two properties that they're talking about on either side of the primary residence?
So it's a 3-unit building, bottom level, main level, upstairs. The upstairs is really small, but it's a unit. There's 3 power meters on it. It's been 3 units for many, many years. I don't know how long. There's nothing on either side. Those are vacant piece of properties.
Oh, okay. I couldn't tell from the map.
It's all under one
So-
house.
Okay.
I think what she's talking about, the applicant was talking about dividing it and separating the two. Are you separating this into townhouses, or are you gonna keep it levels?
If I rebuild it in vertical, it'll be vertical.
It's not being rented currently.
Right. That's what Kat's talking about.
Yeah, it's not being rented currently. Okay.
It was previously, on kind of weekend and short term, even though I'm not sure they were subject to the rules and regs. But they had no, yes, they did, but you had no problem.
Right.
It's just the policy.
So,
Could somebody repeat that? I had trouble understanding her.
It's not being currently rented now. It has been in the past, but they were rented by level. Basement, first floor, second floor.
For less than 28 days.
For less than 28 days.
Yeah, okay, for less than 28 days.
short term, yes.
Has it been shown that renting for fewer than 28 days increases traffic egress onto 321? I mean, I'm just wondering, you know, if someone regardless, if they're in there for 7 days or 28 days and, you know, they're running errands or going to, ski or, you know, pan for gold or whatever, are they gonna be leaving more? I mean, possibly, if it's a 7-day rental.
I'm assuming that you U-turn at the new stoplight? Is that how you go back to go north?
No.
How do you-
Country club,
right, you go down.
country club.
Country Club and turn around. Okay. That's right. That's before that.
Well, in the same, unless you go out of that other driveway from Chateau Cloud, I guess you can go back out to Main Street. Does anyone drive out of Chateau Cloud through that exit and having to turn right on 321?
This property doesn't have access to Chateau Cloud, does it?
No. What I'm saying is, there's a gate right here.
Right.
Exit gate. Is that an exit gate?
Yeah.
Do people use that to leave Chateau Cloud? And they have to turn right. This, access to this house comes in right here, and they go out right there. Access to this property is this driveway cut. It'd be nice if they're all together, and they kind of are, the way that's been paid, but if this is used, it's hard to judge how many vehicle trips. There is a formula based on number of units, how many vehicle trips you would expect a day. Whether it's a 3-unit building or
I don't think it would be any different whether it's single family or short-term rental.
I think long-term rental has a higher probability of vacant days than short-term rental does, right? Because if you're, I mean, the 28, like rental's not the question, it's just a question whether it's short-term or long-term. And so if you're renting, if there's vacant days, that's where the traffic would be different. And that could go either way, but that would be the only difference is you're renting a peak week once a month, right? You know,
That's true.
It sits vacant the other 3.
in Chateau Cloud, what is how many rent there year round? Or not rent, how many live there year round?
Since Lynn Hill moved out, really nobody year round. We've got about 7 or 8 like us, they probably spend 6 months a year.
Okay.
But it's not like it was when, it was, you know, we bought, there were a lot of year round.
Right, just 22 units?
22.
And 17.
Not counting the resident manager.
We have 4 or 5 full-time, and most of the 17, probably 15 was used around 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the magic of 28 days? I mean, to me, the magic of 28 days is there's not a whole lot of people who go on vacation for 28 days. Is it just a number set to reduce the number of people that you can rent to, or the types of people you can rent to? Is that the purpose of 28 days?
Well, it goes back about 40 years. The definition was clarified in 2000 when this overlay district was established in the ordinance. But 28 days is 13 rentals a year based on the 28-day short month of February. Some places are 30 days, but 28 has been the established rule in single family, R15, R10, R6S, other zoning districts that are more neighborhood oriented. It's, if you want to have someone stay, it's 28-day period. Now, does everyone stay 28 days? Probably not, but when that person starts to stay, no one else can come into that house until that 28-day period is up. So even in R15, someone could block out 28 days, somebody can come stay up for a week. We cannot force them to stay the full extent, but we can make sure that that rental period is 28 days or longer. And that's specified in the ordinance.
And the purpose, what is the purpose of having people stay longer than a 7-day rental or a 10-day rental like we do at the beach?
Well, it's more of a neighborhood. They did, when it was first established, we don't want to have a hotel district in the neighborhoods where people are coming every weekend. And I think that was the intent when it was originally put in place.
Is there any guarantee when someone rents for 28 days that it's not open up to multiple people, their friends to come within that 28 days? You really have no control of who comes in that 28 days.
We are reactionary in that point, meaning that we rely a lot on neighbor testimony and observation. Hey, something's going on here.
So is it restricted that if I rented a house for 28 days,
Yes.
but I'm gonna take this weekend, my brother's gonna take the next 2 weeks, and I have a friend that's gonna take it? Are you saying you monitor that?
That's a violation.
Really?
Yes. It's a violation of the ordinance.
And may I ask a point of clarification, Kevin? If this were granted, would this be the first short-term rental weekender kind of thing on that 1.5 mile stretch from roughly Green Park to the short-term rentals on the South Main? It would be the first one on the Gorge View.
On South Main? Yeah, I mean, there's none on South Main until you get down in downtown.
Right. That's what
But
The first expansion of the.
you're talking about, yeah, but it's not on South Main either.
No, I'm talking about the 1.5 mile stretch that includes the view shed and then on to South Main, to your orange map, the current renting, short-term rental. Yeah.
I guess so. I mean,
Yeah.
The overlay
but
district
but
hadn't
less
expanded.
than a quarter mile is a hotel. So,
Right,
I mean, it,
on the other side, not on the view side. And then may I ask if this is, how many bedrooms total?
It's 500 right now.
5 bedrooms, and is it septic tank or?
I don't know. I would think it has an option to, it's probably septic, most likely. I mean, there's a pressure line here that could be accessed if it needed to be. But they'd have to have a pump to pump it up. It's septic down here, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you got a green lid in your yard about that big ring?
I haven't found it yet.
It's septic.
So if there's any expansion of the number of bedrooms, they'd have to get approval from Caldwell County Health Department. So expansion by number of bedrooms may be dictated by the septic system that's available.
It's my understanding that we can hook up to the cities. We didn't get a point where we hook up.
There's a pressurized line right here. You'd have to have access to get up to at least to the DOT right away. And then, I don't want to answer that question. I don't know. I would think you could, but I don't know for sure.
Any other comments?
Yeah, did anyone look to see if there's been any complaints about it in the 20 years it's been a short-term rental?
I didn't. I didn't know it was short-term rental. Till Laura said that it was, I didn't know that it was. But, it's been some time, I believe.
We've known folks that have rented, and her prior owner's agent can certify those cases.
Okay.
When we rented it, it was through Jenkins, so
Right.
it was through a realty company in town. When we rented.
Did you say
it-
Jenkins?
Yes.
Okay.
You can make a decision. Anybody got any?
I make a motion to recommend denial of the request.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
To not,
Deny.
Pete, what do you say, to not do it?
To deny.
Deny, gotcha. Ears.
And then Tom, second. All in favor with the motion, indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed? Harrison?
No, I think it's-
Oh, we need to hear from
Cat and Sam has.
Cat and Sam.
No.
Vote.
I vote Joe Moses as well.
Okay, that was Sam. What'd Cat say? Okay. Okay, this can still move forward to town council next.
It's purely a recommendation to town council. All right. Thank you for coming, and good luck on your next step. Next case, get the boss up here. 2023-02, Town of Blowing Rock.
Yeah, I'll start real briefly. Change it. This is special use permit 2023-02, Blowing Rock Daycare, Daycare Center. The town is the applicant requesting special use to create a daycare center in the old community club building located at 108 Lakeside Drive. The property is currently being used for occasional community events. The property is 0.219 acres and zoned R15 single family. The town is requesting this special use permit to locate a daycare at the community club building, the old Ruertan building. And based on the available space between the building and the property line, on the south and rear of the building, a small deck might be added depending on what our needs are. What you see there is showing the property lines in the middle of the building. That's not accurate. It's just how our GIS is projected there. The red line indicates a little bit closer what we think the property line might be. We've got a surveyor that's due to locate the pins for us. It's just been hard to get anyone, any surveyor, for anybody that wants some work to get a surveyor to move quickly. They're just backed up. But that indicates about where the property lines are. The purpose of this is to provide daycare services for town employees. The predominant age bracket for the daycare is birth to infant to school age. Due to the size of the building, town anticipates not more than 10 children at any one time will be kept in daycare, but that could be expanded up to 20. The health department would determine that and the maximum number of children. And I think John indicated to me that it would be up close to 60 based on the square footage. We do not anticipate anything near that, but there is a need for town daycare services. There's no parking directly on the property, but there's parking across the street and parking down in the pool parking lot. And this would be mainly drop off and they'd park down below and drop off their children. And the daycare work, or childcare workers will be parking down there in that lower lot. You're familiar with the community building, and this is just a view of that. I don't have much more to add. I know Shane does, and he's going to give you a little quick presentation on what was presented at the retreat. Shane?
Thank you. Kevin, if you don't mind starting the PowerPoint there for me. I'm going to stand on this side, if that's okay. It's easier for me to look at the board and.
You get to just the view.
Just top left right here.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight on what is, I think, a unique idea. So this is not something that's been done very often, just a couple times across the state right now, both of which are county driven. So we'd be the first municipality I'm aware of that would offer something like this. This was originally, just to give you a backstory, this was originally discussed at the town retreat a few weeks ago. In the midst of my conversations with our employees, I'm always asking what can the town do to better benefit our employees? What are some of the needs that they're seeing? What type of benefits can we offer that only helps further their employment here, whether that's retention-wise or even recruitment, which in today's world, if you know anything about the Great Resignation, is a difficult thing to be in. I'm happy to say on the past year, 2022, we had 0 resignations for the town of Blowing Rock. So we employ about 80 full-time individuals and about 60 part-time. So our full-time individuals, again, roughly 80 individuals. We did not have anyone that resigned from the town of Blowing Rock this year. So we think we're doing a good job in keeping the benefits and keeping up to speed with the things that are out there. This is one more thing to add to that. So as I made my way around and spoke to some of the employees, I kept hearing about childcare. I'm also a member of Watauga Children's Council, and I'll give you some statistics in just a few moments on a little presentation I did for the town council that kind of lays out why this need is here. If you come into our office in any given day, you may see a child here that will show you point blank that the need is there because of really 2 reasons. And I'll talk through those in just a few moments. So if you'll allow me, I'll kind of go through a quick PowerPoint. Again, this is fairly brief. I did this for the town council. Just some numbers here that I threw out to the town council that was shared back in December by Harry Davis, who's one of our local economists here for Appalachian State. Talked about the unemployment numbers in the state at 3.5%, which is fantastic. However, talked about the fact that we have 10.5 million jobs in this country that are unfilled. And our labor participation rate continues to fall and really has for about 20 years. COVID really put that into a tailspin. His 2 reasons, the baby boomers retiring out of the workforce and childcare. That was his number 1 and number 2. We can't do anything about the baby boomers, but we can do something about the childcare, and that's what you'll see here in this presentation. A couple statistics here at the bottom and a couple slides worth of just more numbers. Pew Research in March of 2022 said 48% of individuals that left the workforce were due to childcare issues. You'll see again in a few moments some information that COVID really did put the childcare industry into a dire situation. Economic losses from childcare issues, again, across the country, $122 billion in 2022, which was up from $57 billion in 2018. Just North Carolina alone, $3.5 billion. This is lost wages, lost productivity, where these numbers come from. Again, that's part of that Pew Research study that I showed a few moments ago. A few more here from Ready Nation, which is a 2022 study. 23% of individuals said they'd been fired because of childcare problems. 26% said they had quit a job over childcare. 37% said they had pay or hours reduced because of childcare issues, and 41% said they turned down. So that's retention and recruitment is what we talked about at the retreat. So we talk about childcare, we look at 2 main issues. Number 1 is the lack of childcare. So the lack of space. Number 2 is that if you can find a space, the cost of childcare. So we'll start with the lack of childcare. North Carolina is considered like all states, there's certain portions of North Carolina that are considered childcare desert, which means there's not enough childcare spaces for the children that are located in that area. Over 400,000 parents across North Carolina said they had to miss work in 2022 because of childcare issues. According to federal data, more than 50,000 parents just in December missed work because of childcare issues.
During the pandemic, you can see the numbers there, 26,000 North Carolina kids dropped out of preschool and child care programs. In the last 2 years, the pandemic magnified this issue with issues of 16 child care centers being forced to close. So if y'all remember back at the beginning of the pandemic, child care centers were forced to close because of the COVID issues with social distancing and some of the restrictions that take place. 16,000 of those centers across the country closed down and did not reopen. We had over 6, I think, we had 6 in this county that closed down and did not reopen during the pandemic. So in Watauga County, 2,000 children under the age of 5. We have 659 total spots, which means there is over 1,300 children that are making their way each day, whether that's with mom or dad or a grandparent or whomever that may be. But this shows here that there's only 659 spots today for 2,000 children. There's over 300 children on waiting list. Some of the waiting lists, like if you go to ASU, the Lucy Brock Center down here at Sunnyside, some of those waiting lists are longer than 2 years, which means you have a child that is born today, it may be 2 years before that child's able to enter that child care facility. So that's problem number one, is the lack of centers and lack of space for child care. Number two is the cost of this. This is where me as a numbers person was somewhat blown away when looking at some of the data that's out there. Infant care in North Carolina costs $2,125 more per year than in-state tuition for 4-year public college. So if you have a child in a child development center, it's on average, it's $2,000 more to send that child to college. That makes North Carolina one of 33 states in DC where infant care is more expensive than college. North Carolina infant care costs just 8.6% less than average rent. So it's a house payment, it's a rent payment to have a child in infant care. The average annual cost of infant care in North Carolina is $9,480. That's $790 per month. Watauga is over $800, $810, which is $9,600 on average. In comparison to that, Appalachian State tuition and fees for the year is $8,152. So it is cheaper to send your teenager or 20-something-year-old to college for the year than it is to have an infant in child care. That's problem number two. So when we looked at these two issues, knowing that we have employees right now that would utilize this service, we started thinking outside of the box. We started thinking, so how can we potentially help our employees that have a need right now, some of which are in childcare that are struggling to pay for that childcare, and how can we help the ones that are waiting on the spot for childcare, and then how do we help the ones that are currently expecting, which we have several of those as well. And so when we looked at it from our perspective, we looked at what can we do as a town. We offer a number of benefits already, so health insurance, vision, dental, that type of thing. We're classifying this as just an additional benefit for those that choose to do so, to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. So when we look at what we need to have a child care center, we looked at a building number one, so a space. And so that's why we picked the community building. It's somewhat underutilized. We don't rent it out very often. It is currently home to our voting, and I'll talk about that in just a few moments. And then we rent it out several times a month for several reasons. So it is underutilized, in our opinion. So that was one of the thoughts that we kind of used to approach whether or not this building was even feasible. And so we did contact the individuals at the bottom. Those are some of the lead child care consultants at the Division of Child Development and Early Education, which is through North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And they did come up, take a tour of the building, looked at the building, and the building is conducive with some upfitting. And I'll talk just in a moment about some of the upfitting we have to take place in order to make this building conducive for a child care center. So we have gone through that due diligence process with the state. That is the regulatory authority that we would have to be under. We then looked at where would this be placed within our current structure. And we have and truly an award-winning after-school and summer school program now that's ran through our Park and Rec. So our after-school program began after COVID or during COVID when there was a need from the school system because of the restrictions that were placed with the after-school program because, again, social distancing, things of that nature. So we started an after-school program. We had ran a summer camp program for at least the last 15 or 20 years, very successful. When we open up the summer camp program, which is coming up very soon, we normally sell out those slots within the first 1 to 2 days. So summer camp has always been a sellout for us. It's a highly touted program that individuals from all across the area love to bring their children to. Same with after school. So when we open up the after school program, we were expecting to have a handful of children. We have 24 kids now every day from Lone Rock that walk up or take the bus up. We have a van that can pick them up, that spend their after-school days here, after hours, after school here with our Park and Rec department, where they do, after school, they do homework and go outside and play on the playground, a number of things. That's a charged program, just like the summer school program, summer camp program that we have is a charged program. So again, it makes sense for us to house that within the same department. As we look through, the credentialing, what would make sense within that, it was determined that our current Park and Rec Director, Jennifer Brown, again, who is in charge of these two other programs, would kind of be our director, so to speak. We have talked to the state and what that would need to look like, classes, et cetera, and she's already started that process to become certified. Again, everything we would have to do from a buildings perspective, and all the certifications that are needed, they've got their checklist and boxes we have to go through to be able to make sure that we would be in compliance within that. There are some things we have to do to this building. On the outside, we do have to provide lattice on any of the unclosed areas. That way little ones don't wander off on the porch and around the HVAC systems. We do have to provide, I put here a privacy fence. It doesn't have to be a privacy fence. It has to be, I think, at least 42 inches tall that goes around an area on the outside. Kevin mentioned earlier, I think, the square footage on the inside of the building would allow up to, I think, 53 children based on the square footage. The outside square footage would not. So the outside square footage that we're going to potentially enclose would only allow us to have 12 children, because the outside square footage is a little bit different. 75 square feet per child, where the inside is 25, which I thought would have been the other way around. But outside is 75 per child, of which we're planning on enclosing about 1,000 square feet here. So that's about 12 children here, which is not what's
they utilize, depending on the age, some stuff across the street at the pool.
Absolutely. So we are not planning on erecting any type of playground equipment here. We're going to have some outdoor type activities for them to enjoy, but we're going to utilize playground across the road. We're going to utilize our park system to take them on walks and things of that nature, strollers, whatever access we may have. So a couple other things that have to be done. We do have to provide direct access from the inside of the building to the play area. That's on the back side, whether that's a deck and a ramp or just a stoop. We have not gotten to that point yet. We're still kind of waiting on those final things from the state. We do have to provide access on the back of the building that would allow for little ones to be able to safely access the yard area. Hand washing sink in the room, again, that's something that's small for the little ones that have to be placed. And then a place for drop off and pickup. We have that. We just have to enlarge the area a little bit to the building. So we put up here to council's, just for council's perspective, $40,000 as a rough estimate. I don't think it's going to be that much, but again, we have to go through that process and kind of get those final numbers to see exactly what it's going to look like. That building on the interior, if you've been there, is one large open room with a kitchen in the back, full kitchen, and then there's 2 restrooms on the side. So when we talk about adding a sink, hand washing type area, we're talking about renovating one of those restrooms, old small toddler toilet, sink, that type of thing. That would be a part of that. So again, that's kind of quick running through it. This is just for employees only. That's been out in the area just a little bit in the last couple of days. We're not getting into the childcare business, so to speak. This is just for our full-time employees and their children. That's our benefit here. We are going to charge them. So this is not going to be a free service. We're going to charge them a reduced rate. So we believe market rate is around $800 is what we're seeing. So we're thinking of cutting that in half, thereabouts. Again, town council has to approve all this and go through the process of hearing the full package and making their decision. We just want to make sure that we're continuing to stay up to speed with what's out there. And really, if there's something we can do to solve some of the needs of our employees, we're going to try to do so. This is, in our opinion, a little easier than some of the other issues we have, like affordable housing and things of that nature that are more difficult to solve than what maybe the town can properly run off. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Not a question, but I'd just like to applaud you for thinking about your employees and doing something progressive in a town that many consider just a second home community. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is that childcare place still down the road? The brick building, wasn't it childcare?
I'm not familiar with that. Kevin, you know?
No.
It's not?
No.
I property, so.
Yeah.
Big brick.
It's a house.
Yeah, it's an Airbnb.
Is it an Airbnb?
In the back.
I believe there's a history with this building of being a child care center at one point. I was told today, do you know that, Kevin? Was that before your time? This building was used at one point for a child care center?
The Rurity?
Yes. I was told many years ago this was used for
Maybe
that,
it
so I
was.
didn't realize that. Yes, sir, Jim.
Well, we're gonna vote.
I was gonna ask that question as well.
So our proposal, and again, again, there's a lot of things left to be approved. So one is obviously going through the elections as well. But for this year, we would still plan on holding elections if need be. So we can't have early elections there, but we plan on having the November, whatever date it is, election at the Legion building. So we've already reserved that date. So for this year, early voting is going to be a difficult thing for us to figure out because the Legion's already booked during that time. We are proposing having this up and running by early summer. So as soon as we can get through the process, we do have a need right now. So we would have the ability to have election day voting at the American Legion. Early voting would not be able to take place at the American Legion because of the fact that it's already booked. Now, moving forward into the next year, which is a bigger election, this is a municipal election this year. So from a turnout standpoint, moving into the next year, 2024, we would have the ability to go ahead and block off the American Legion. But again, that's going to be subject to the elections if they choose to go that route. We haven't spoken to them about the entirety of this yet.
I make a motion that we go for it.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. So,
That's good.
I make one statement.
Go for it.
Sam?
I want to echo Harrison and Shane just for just the idea and taking care of our employees. And I actually participated in the summer program when I was a kid, and I can tell you firsthand that it was a very, very beneficial program for myself. And the only thing that I would want to make sure is in consideration, because I do live around there, is consideration for the safety of the narrowness of the road going down beside it. I know the privacy fence is definitely going to take care of that, but that would be my only concern is the safety of the children and that it is a very narrow road and you have to sort of inch by other cars when you're passing, and so that's what I would say.
Thanks, Sam.
You know, the other only last comment I would make is the town staff does a wonderful job and we don't thank them near enough. And we need to always take the opportunity to thank them. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to reward them for their hard work and help them with their family expenses. So it's commendable.
Thank you.
One of the most prepared presenters for a special use permit.
This is true. Makes it easy.
Yeah, the whole slideshow, the presentation, dog and pony.
All right. Any other business?
It's hard not to use it.
I know.
Other business?
I don't have any. We will have we think we will still have a case next month in March. We'll have some new membership. Pete, thank you for your service.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll have to fill your role on our downtown. Aren't you on the downtown group? Unless you want to be an at-large and hang in there with us.
I think not.
Okay. We're moving slow, so, but I will report to the group, our subcommittee that's discussing downtown. We met in January. They asked me to put together a public notice that's going out in the water bill mailing for the people to send information to me. What do you not like about downtown? What is it that triggers you? And because, you know, everybody talk about the same stuff. We all love this, that, and the other. We want to know what's the issue that you have as it pertains to downtown. And we'll gather that information. That goes through April 3rd, and then we'll come back together as a group and see what we got as far as responses. When we did meet in January, we made available the information that was put together in 2018 as a subcommittee that went on through planning board. And Sue Glenn is serving on the subcommittee, and she made a good point. She said, well, what was the problem with what we did? So we didn't necessarily just throw it all out. We said, maybe we got a good framework of moving forward. And because there was a lot of work done, there was 6 months of work done, and maybe we can use that to help guide us through. But I think we're going to go in a little bit more detail in some of the architectural elements and look where we can possibly strengthen our code for commercial design. Identifying East versus West Main Street, what does that look like, and how do we draw an ordinance that will reflect that? And hear from the public, involve the public is one of the things that we want to do. And so you'll see that. I think there's a version online, I don't know yet, but that will go out in the mailings to all the water bill customers. So we'll canvass a greater area and hopefully get some good comments, and something that we can use in our work. Any other questions on what's going on in town? Just right now's the time. Glad to answer.
Did you get any more bids on your comp plan?
I did not get any more. But I did get a repeat from Benchmark, so
That's good.
they'll be the ones that are awarded. The proposal that they sent in, they're familiar with us. They've worked with us before, and we'll use them. I think it'll be very good for us.
Sounds good. All right. Motion to adjourn? Harrison? Second? Second. Tom? All in favor? We're out of here. Thank you.
Bye, Cat. Thank you.
Bye, Cat. Sam?
Sam?
All right. Thank y'all.